Afternoon, yeah, I'm on the reserve.
Tony Sims, you're nobody's reserve. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you very much.
Good to have you on board. You know Mr. Jordan, you certainly know the man to your left, Spencer Oliver. We're not going to draw you into all this debate about Fury Joshua, Tony. Let's concentrate on the fight that your man is in. Conor Benn, October the 8th at the O2 up against Eubank Jr. What sort of shape is Conor in? How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, he's in tremendous condition, as he always is. You know, he's a fitness fanatic, and he, he's fully focused on this fight. He's worked extremely hard, and his mind's right, and everything's good about him.
So, Tony, how does Conor move up? You know, he's moving up from 147. This fight's made at 157. How does he put that sort of weight on? Obviously, has he put that on in muscle mass? I mean, how's he put that on, and is he strong at that weight?
Well, you know, he's obviously at a disadvantage in this fight because he's having to jump up 2 weight divisions, but he struggles to make the welterweight limit, so he's probably a natural light middleweight. So where the fight's made at 11.3, he's probably a natural 11 stoner. So you know, obviously the size difference, you know, he's gonna be a hard fight for him, but power-wise, he probably hits like a super middleweight. So, you know, he with his power and his aggression and his destructive nature, you know, he's always going to have a chance in this fight.
You know, Conor's he's at a disadvantage because he's moving up 2 weight divisions, but then Chris Eubank is actually boxing at 157, a weight that he hasn't made since he was 18. He normally boxes at 160. He's been as high as 168 when he boxed George Groves. So do you think that's a big disadvantage for him? We've seen a lot of psychological stuff going on, haven't we, online? I had him, Chris Eubank Jr. on my podcast actually as well, and he was eating a banana cake. He's eating a lot. He's doing that psychological game. It's actually like watching Chris Eubank Sr. and Nigel back in 30 years
That's
ago,
right.
where Nigel's the emotional one, like Conor is, and Senior's the one that plays the psychological mind games, etc. It's like going back in time, Tone, isn't it?
Yeah, and you know, they're very similar in their personalities, the juniors and the seniors, and obviously, you know, there's had to be a bit of disadvantage for Chris to make this fight. You know, there's a big disadvantage for Conor, and there's had to be a disadvantage for Chris. So, you know, they're both. We've tried to even the fight out, you know, and obviously it will be a struggle for Chris to make that weight, and it's going to be a struggle for Conor to go up 2 weights. So,
sure,
you know, that's the conclusion.
I feel, Simon, there's huge pressure on both fighters here. Obviously, Tony, because of the legacies of the dads. I mean, neither fighter can even entertain the thought of losing. Conor because of Nigel, and Chris because of Chris Senior. There's heaps of pressure on them.
Yeah, without a doubt, you know, because it goes further than, you know, just getting into the ring with 2 opponents because of the history of the dads. You know, obviously there's a burning desire for both of them to win this fight, you know. And so, as you say, there's a lot of pressure on both of them.
Does Conor talk about that much?
Never. No, he
never.
He never talks about pressure. I think he's dealt with pressure since like the age of 19 on his first fight at the O2 when all the spotlight was on him then. So he's had to deal with it for the last 6-7 years, and the pressure he don't speak about now.
I think there's much more rides on this actually for Chris Eubank Jr. because if Junior loses to Conor, who's a 147 fighter, it is pretty much the end for him.
But he said that himself,
it's close to it. Yeah, he said it himself. So
Tony,
a lot more pressure on him.
What was your reaction? Obviously, we're watching Conor develop, and the speed of his development is being enhanced by your involvement. And we've seen him go through the gears with Formella, Granados onto Algieri, onto Van Woerden, and we're seeing this development. And we're thinking, is he going to fight Avanesyan? Is he going to move up and maybe fight Thurman? Is he going to go through, maybe fight Broner if he can be relied on? What was your reaction as his trainer to the fact that this fight was being announced? We know it's a huge money fight, and we know that commercially it makes a lot of sense. And I don't want you to speak out of turn and necessarily put yourself in a compromised position, but as a fight plan for Conor, who I think will win a world title, what was your initial reaction to this fight?
Well, it was that we was looking at the Thurman fight, and I know Eddie Hearn was in deep negotiations for that fight.
Yeah.
And then this just come as a curveball out of nowhere, really. And how it was suggested to us was that Chris Eubank said he can do 157 if we want to make the fight. So that's how the fight first come to, conclusion. But the first person I spoke to was Nigel Benn about it, and he said to me, "You've got to do this fight." He said, I want my boy to do this fight. So that's really
because
how
you've been a big
about.
stickler on the rehydration clause, haven't you?
Yeah.
You've been very rigid on that and very disciplined on that particular position, haven't you?
Yeah, because as we were saying earlier, we're at a big disadvantage. So Chris has to be at a disadvantage as well. And even though we think he's going to struggle to make 157, obviously, as you know, it's a 24-hour to the fight, and there's a lot of weight that can be put on then. And if you look at IBF rules, which I think's really good rules, that they can only put £10 on by the next day, so we've sort of gone by them rules really.
So you've got the rehydration clause in place for the next day, but that's what time is that check weighing again for the rehydration clause? Is that 11 o'clock the next day?
11 o'clock.
So he's still got the best part of 10 hours to put more weight on.
He has, but as you know, Spence, it's not that easy to do that, rehydrate that quick.
Sure.
In fact, if you try to do it too fast, you can actually make yourself be sick.
Yeah, sure.
So,
in your mind's eye, Tony, what do you see this fight? How do you see this fight playing out? If you've got, I mean, I'm not suggesting you're going to tell us your game plan, but how do you see the fight in terms of what Eubank's likely to do, or what Conor's? Are we expecting Conor to meet him head on in the middle of the ring? Is that the sort of position that we will be looking forward to?
as you say, I don't want to talk about game plans because we've been working to a game plan for the last 10, 12 weeks. But all I can say now, I think it'll be early doors, very exciting. Early doors.
I think
it will be.
I think it'll be like watching the old men boxing back in the 90s. I really do, because there's
all
so
gonna be
much on the line.
Tony.
I
Honestly,
think it goes
can't
down
wait
to the
for it.
wire. I think it's like a little Rocky movie we're going to see it with both guys, because they're both very proud men, and they're their father's sons, and they, they've got that in their DNA, and that's the bottom line of it. Conor's going to go for it, and Chris is going to have to respond.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.